Hey, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to All Burgundy Gold, everything. Powered by the urban sports scene in Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM and 1340 AM Hopewell, Virginia. The Washington Commanders, a miracle in D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, Christmas came early for the Washington Commanders today as the Washington Commanders defeated the Chicago Bears 18-15 with a Hail Mary play by Jaden freaking Daniels. And how does Troy Aikman feel now? Like we should separate, put Marcus Mariota in. I don't think he get it that deep. Well, he got it that deep. And Noah Brown, who dropped one earlier, got an early Christmas gift and gave us Washington Commanders fans a great evening and a good Monday morning. George, what's up? I see that you're excited. Oh, my goodness. What a game. The Washington Commanders defeat the Chicago Bears 18-15. Last second Hail Mary play by Jaden freaking Daniels. We're the one.
Glenn, that is an amazing intro you gave, considering I don't know how you pulled yourself together after that to be able to deliver that as succinctly and as professionally as you did, because I am a wreck. I am shaking like a leaf. I screamed like my grandmother, may she rest in peace. That's how she would have screamed. I mean, we're talking about high-pitched tolerant and everything. Washington did everything to lose that game, and then that happens. I just can't. I'm still shaking. I'm still in shock. As we get into this, hopefully I'll be able to get my thoughts together. But this, I'm absolutely stunned at what just happened.
Hey, before we get into it, man, here's particular. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio platform. Just search All Burgundy Gold, everything. Also, tweet us at ABG_everything. Hit us up on IG and TikTok at ABG_everything. Make sure you subscribe to all our platforms. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. I need you to subscribe because I want you to hit into the chat, right? We want to hear from you today. We want to hear the Washington Commanders fans today. Matter of fact, I may do something that we don't do just because this is the big thing. If you want to chime in live with us, right? I'm going to send you out the link. I'll put the link in the chat. We will screen it. If you want to come in live and give your opinion and give how you think and give your excitement, we're going to put you in live with us today. Something different we haven't done. But this never, again, Josh, I'm going to hit you up on Twitter because Josh said it. This never happens to us. This was amazing. That is exactly right.
You're so right.
That never happens to the Washington Commanders. The Commanders would go down. Folks were already making excuses to not go to work tomorrow. Jeremy, I want you to chime in because guess what? St. Jude still get the booty award because St. Jude he gets the booty award of the day because St. Jude hugged him. I knew it was coming. I knew we were going to throw it up to Keenan Allen. I knew St. Jude was going to get a 15-yard penalty. But let's freaking go. That's right, Jayden 24. Let's go. Let's go. Washington Commanders, let's go. I'm going to put it like, hey, Michael, you said it, man. I want everybody to right now throw the ones up and acknowledge Jaden Daniels. Acknowledge Jaden Daniels. He is the one. He sits at the head of the table of the Washington Commanders. He is the one. That's right. He's the one. Acknowledge him. Rookie of the year. Wrap it up. Give it to him right now. Jaden Daniels.
Honestly, I was prepared to come in here and talk about how we have just thrown the NFC East wide open to the Eagles and maybe even the Cowboys if they somehow win tonight. Honestly, that play right there might be the difference between winning this division and getting a home game or having to take to the road in week 1 of the playoffs. You talk about an NFC win, 6-2 now, so you keep that buffer between you and the Eagles. This is such a massive victory from so many perspectives because to dominate this game like Washington did and then find a way to lose it would have called up everything that's happened the last 20 to 25 years with this team. That loss that we thought we were seeing is the exact sort of loss that we've seen so many years in this town because it was what they would always do. Play well enough to break your heart. And that's what they were doing today. There's so many mistakes. Illegal man downfield penalties taking away big plays and touchdowns, drops in the end zone, questionable refereeing calls going against us. All these things that we're so used to seeing happen to Washington. And Jaden Daniels may have flushed all that negative karma energy past right down the toilet with that play. He literally is a marvel, a wonder, because he was not 100%. to have a game like that, he had to extend that play. Think about that. He's waiting to throw. He's got nothing. He waits and waits, runs around, gets in the right position, and puts it up there where it's got a chance for something like that to happen, and it happens.
It is.
I can't find the words right now.
When you talk about overcoming adversity, this team overcame adversity within 21 seconds, right? 21 seconds left with one timeout. Paul, I'm like Paul. I got to go on and do a show. Got to be professional, but Paul, I'm speechless, right?
Same here, Paul.
I don't think my family heard me yell that much and that hard in a long time. I think everyone in my house was yelling. My son from college called me and said, "Dad, did you just see Jaden freaking Daniels?" It is one of those things that people are going to see. If you're not a believer in Jayden Daniels now, then you won't be a believer, right? You have to be a believer in Jaden Daniels. We got a guest on today. We have Kelsey Nelson from K&N here. You can hear on Fox Sports Radio 1340 AM and 96.9 FM. We're going to bring Kelsey in right now to share her excitement about the Washington Commanders and what she thought about a game. Here we go, Kelsey. Kelsey, welcome to All Burgundy and Gold Everything. Hey, how are you feeling right now? I see you got yourself together. What are your thoughts on this game and Jayden Daniels and the lore of Jayden Daniels? Because whatever he does after this will always be seen. This goes in the Commanders Redskins history. Your thoughts on Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders win?
Glenn, everyone's week just got that much better here in the DMV area. And first, I'm so glad to join you, fellas. I mean, you thought this game was over, right? Many had wrote it off. People probably turned the channel. They were ready for that potential heartbreak in Washington after the Commanders played a solid game, but were relying too much right on that field goal kicker, right? Austin Seibert. But all of a sudden, Jayden Daniels did the impossible. How I feel, Glenn, I'm claiming it now. Jayden Daniels is clutch in his young rookie career. They have someone that they can rely and hold on to. I'm excited about the future of this Washington team. And I truly am believing. Before I was like, okay, it looks good. The Commanders seem like they have some of the tools, some of the pieces. And even after the penalties right in this game, even after some of the defensive fubs in this game, even though there was a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams in this game, Washington achieved the impossible. Right now, I'm looking at the hottest team in the National Football League, George and Glenn. Very, very excited for Washington. Excited to talk about them all week long because all eyes right now are on Washington and this young kid that we didn't know who was going to play right until hours before the game. And all of a sudden, he led this team to a beautiful victory.
We had a walk-off home run,
grand
slam home run in the Los Angeles Dodgers in the Yankees World Series. And we had that's right, here it is. We had a walk-off, Paul, my man, Paul. We had a walk-off touchdown in the Washington Commanders taking on the Chicago Bears. And you know what? And we talk about the Commanders. This may right here, and I'm not going to say it early, but this may be the game the Bears look back to if they don't make the playoffs. This may be the game right here that keep the Chicago Bears out of the playoffs because the Chicago Bears have a tough division. They're playing in a tough division where you have Minnesota winning, you have Green Bay winning, and so Minnesota 6-1, Green Bay is also 6-1, I believe, and so you have a tough division. And the Bears, this may be the game, all right. But let's before we get, I know everyone's excited. Man, somebody excited. We all excited. But this is the tale of two halves, right?
Yes.
The tale of two halves. The Washington Commanders defense shut out a team for the second time in 2 weeks in the first half, right? Held this Bears team and took 33 yards passing with Caleb Williams, excuse me. And George, they did what we said they would do. They needed to do in the first half, and that was blitz Caleb Williams and make him uncomfortable. They made him uncomfortable. They blitzed him. Give me your thoughts on this defense in the first half. And after George, Kelsey, tell us about the defense. Your thoughts on the defense in the first half.
I didn't expect this effort. As I was the one saying this was going to be a shootout. They did a magnificent job. I mean, really, until that DeAndre Swift run, they were absolutely whiting out and shutting out the Bears. I mean, the Bears could not get anything rolling. And I think even if we had lost, I think we could have had the conversation after today that this defense has turned a corner because whatever you want to say, yes, Caleb's a rookie and all that. He's got weapons. That's a talented offense, even though they lost one of their tackles during the game as well. All those alibis being said, I think we would have walked out of this game saying this defense is taking a step forward and Washington can have a say in this NFC as a result. But to win this game like they did, it took them keeping Chicago down for 3 quarters. I mean, Caleb had 96 yards in the fourth quarter after having 36 and 3. That's an incredible performance.
Yeah, I think George hit the nail on the head. Look, the first half of this game, it was all about that Commanders defense and what they were able to do. And again, I was on Chicago radio this week, and everyone's talking about how high-powered the Chicago offense could be, right? Caleb Williams starting to get things rolling for Chicago, a high-scoring team like Washington that could put points on the board. And again, everyone's talking about how Caleb Williams has kind of found his groove and really settled into that offense. The biggest questions, Glenn, I had going into this game was, would the Bears be able to get their run game going? I know we're going to talk about the second half later, but in that first half, Washington did everything that they needed to do. I'm old enough to remember last time when DJ Moore came in to Washington and made this defense embarrassed in front of fans from Maryland that were very excited to see him go off. But on the other end of things, I mean, Newton in the way that he played, Deron Payne, who had a good game, I think, as well. The defense has been having guys step up to the matter. Now, the second half was very scary, but all in all, Glenn, if I'm the Commanders on defense, I'm very happy with the solid play. Now, of course, offense, you wish those field goals had turned into touchdowns. You ask a lot more of your defense when that happens and you let a team hang around. But all in all, Glenn, I think Washington in that locker room again after that first half, very solid defensive performance. And this is a defense that people were worried about going into this game because of the high-powered offensive weapons that Caleb Williams had at his disposal in Chicago. But all in all, again, most people were able to be shut down. Keenan Allen really didn't become a factor until that second half. Again, DJ Moore also second half. So the guys that you were worried about didn't really have to worry about too much in that first half.
Yeah, that's what you said. I mean, even in this game, you talk about the power, how we talked about it on a pregame show, where the high-power offense that the Chicago Bears had, right? You had Keenan Allen, who had 2 catches for 39 yards. You also had DJ Moore, who only had 2 catches for 27 yards. So I think the secondary for 3.5 quarters, right? This secondary played very well. This secondary stepped up, right? There are still some pieces in the secondary. They was playing man coverage in the secondary. They stopped them for 3.5 quarters. And I take my hat off to Caleb Williams, right? Because there were several times that he was sacked in the backfield and he was able to escape from being sacked, right? He was escaped from a Johnny Newton. He escaped from a Deron Payne, and he was able to extend plays and see guys downfield. Keenan Allen was able to break off a chip route. He wasn't even designed to play and able to catch the ball there. So again, Caleb Williams played well in the second half. In the first half, this defense was energetic. The crowd, right? The crowd at FedEx Field at Northwest Stadium, right? They have it. At
Give
Northwest
proper
Stadium,
naming right.
Northwest Stadium was excited. You could see the energy come out. Louisville was excited. Louisville made tackles. Deron Payne in the second half made a shoestring tackle. So again, you saw guys step up. You had Mathis today, who played a great game on the defensive line. I don't want anyone to take away from this game that the defense didn't play well, right? Because they only gave up 15 points. Let's be honest. You gave up 15 points to an NFL team. If we have any complaint today from the Washington Commanders, and I know we all want to keep it positive, is that the fact that the offense could not score touchdowns in the red zone.
Right.
This was and plus some of it was offensively, and some of it was the Chicago Bears defense stepping up. So give me your thoughts, George. We start with you. Your thoughts on the Washington Commanders and what you saw with them in the red zone and why they couldn't score touchdowns.
It felt like we were going back to what we saw against the Giants. It's like, how many different ways could we shoot ourselves in the foot? And it's like both of the illegal man downfield calls were correct. And at least this year they're calling that in the NFL, because that's been a frustration of mine for a long time. So I look at it as, yes, Chicago's defense made some plays, but it really was down to Washington kept sabotaging themselves inside the red zone. And Kelsey, I think some of it too is there were some really odd calls and odd situations that I thought Cliff put this team in. It was pretty clear to me, at least, especially in this, as somebody else was pointing it out on Twitter, but it was pretty clear to me by the second quarter, this team couldn't run the football with Jayden under center. So what did you think of Kingsbury's play calling on the red zone, in the red zone? Because I thought it was kind of curious at times.
Yeah, I feel like my timeline was calling for more Brandon Robinson design plays in that second half. Because again, you look at a guy who can score touchdowns, right? And Washington already has surpassed his touchdowns from last season. So I think all in all, yes, we could look at Cliff Kingsbury, we could do questions, but all in all, honestly, the what I like the most about this Washington offense. I remember before the season started, everyone asked me who's going to be the player that you think gives the most value, and I said Zach Ertz. And people thought I was crazy, George, in Glenn, and I talked about his veteran. and how he can make plays. Who is Mr. Reliable? Zach Ertz. And again, what he's able to do with that veteran leadership. And I think Brandon Robinson, let's be honest, we've had questions about him in terms of would he be able to carry this run game going into the season. Now, this season, he's proved it. I think him with Austin Eckler, and honestly, the Commanders have one of the most, I think, most fun backfields to watch in football, because when they get rolling, they get rolling. If you've been a Washington fan a long time, you know we've been calling for the ground and pound. But I think the deep ball plays was where we saw really Jayden get hot, right? That 61 yards, Terry McLaurin. We know how Terry McLaurin's able to break away, George, and honestly kept beating his defenders. I think that was really again, this is a good Bears defense. I know after this game, they're probably going to be getting torn to shreds, but going into this game, this was a defense that you did not want to face. We saw Montez Sweat be able to get to Jaden Daniels in this game. But all in all, I think there are questions, George, but I'm not, at the end of the day, I'm not too mad at Cliff Kingsbury. I think he did the job that he was supposed to do. I think obviously you just need playmakers in games like this. This was one of those tough games. I knew it was going to come down to the wire, and that it didn't know it was going to come down that close to the wire of a game. But again, not mad at it, because it's a thriller that we get to get overall. But all in all, again, at the end of the day, if I'm Washington looking at this game, and again, Austin Seibert has had to have his number called, I think, too many times, not just in this game, but previous games as well. You cannot rely on your kicker if you do want to talk about the P word here in Washington, the postseason and potential playoff success. I know I'm getting forward and ahead, George, but you got to.
No, I totally agree with you. I just want to have a forced question, because this is one of the other issues. Was Zach Ertz's catch a touchdown or not? Because I thought that it was. I thought it was. Maybe that's biased. The one that was not overturned by the challenge. Was that a touchdown or not?
Yes, in my opinion, it was a touchdown. I think that was a touchdown. I believe it was a touchdown. But again, they said it wasn't. Said Steven. But hats off to Stevenson, right? Because he played a heck of a game.
That was
I'm give credit to where credit is due. He stopped the Terry McLaurin touchdown, right? He broke up the Zach Ertz touchdown. He broke up a short run. Stevenson played today for the Chicago Bears, because guess what? And we've seen this a lot with Terry McLaurin. He'll make the big catch, but he's not the breakaway guy. Right, he's got caught several times this year, and I love Terry. Right, he came several times this year. He got caught by a shoestring, and no hats off to him, because he had a great game today. He had 5 catches for 125 yards. Look, great day for Terry McLaurin. We talked about this consistent 100-yard games for Terry McLaurin. 5 catches, a big 61-yard from Jaden Daniels. So again, and I want to put something up that Paul says, right? And Paul, I heard you the first time, but we can get to the chat because y'all jumping today and a lot of questions. Here it is. Paul said this. Repeat. We don't have a guy that can create a red zone mismatch, which is true, right? You don't have that guy. You don't have an AJ Brown. You don't have you don't have those guys that can create mismatches. You don't have a CD Lamb that can go up and get it. We thought Noah Brown was that. They haven't been able to get Noah Brown in that type of situation as a big body guy to get there. Tremaine is on the practice squad, right? So that's one of the guys. We thought McCaffrey could be that guy. McCaffrey's not that guy. So they have not used him in that sense. A guy, Keelan Allen for the Chicago Bears. Look who they went to when they was on the 1 yard. Look who they went to, right? They went to Keelan Allen. They went to the veteran who was able to get up there and get that. Paul, I agree with you. George, Kelsey, your thoughts. Can we get a big guy? Do we have that red zone guy?
Yeah, I'll answer both questions. So, George, I was like you. When I look back at replay and I pause it and I froze it, I know these catch rules are probably the most contested things that get fans going. But when you look at it, he had the ball. It did hit the ground, but to Glenn's point, Stevenson's arm was in there. And I think, unfortunately, it was that close, but not a completed catch. Now, again, I know you can look at it both ways. There's going to be questions about the reffing. I thought Zach Ertz honestly did everything, though, that he could in that sense. It's just the defender was the better one on that play. So I hated that for Washington. But again, you hate to go back. You hate to have that. But at the end of the day, again, Washington has to be able to find the guy. Going back to Glenn's question, it kind of lends into that. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. When we need touchdowns, Brian Robinson has kind of been that guy on the wide receiver end of things. I think Terry McLaurin, good for the deep ball, but like you said, Glenn, who's going to be that short catch and run guy that can get into the end zone? And I think that's going to be what Washington has to find. Now, I think there are guys who are developing, Glenn, and can be put into that, but right now we haven't seen that person step up. And I think that is a difference maker. I think Rory said it in the thing, like Travis Kelsey, that's a catch. If that was Zach, if he was Zach Ertz. Travis Kelsey, I feel like can do the impossible. There's a reason why he's one of the best ones. And then Patrick Mahomes obviously has that connection with him. So all that to say, Glenn, I think give Jaden Daniels time to find that connection with that guy that can be that guy in the red zone. Again, we're into week 8 of the NFL season. Jayden Daniels still a rookie, though I know he has kind of surpassed some expectations. But all in all, I think when Washington is able to get that, they can be a true threat in the NFC. And again, I'm excited because right now Jayden Daniels' ceiling just continues to rise and to raise. And this is, again, a fun team to watch, and he's going to continue to develop chemistry with these guys. And honestly, all in all, I'm excited just that he is passing the ball more and that he has more weapons. I mean, the ball movement this year compared to last season, I think already much better. There's so many guys that we can name that were able to catch the ball and step up when their number was called and when needed. So all in all to say, I hated that touchdown called back for McCaffrey. I think he's going to be another one that we need to step up more. But Glenn, to your point, I do hope it is somebody like him. I think he's somebody that can step up a lot more. But honestly, I would like to see Washington be a little bit more creative with tight end play. I think that's going to be something that Cliff Kingsbury is going to have to use a little bit better, because teams who are able to use tight ends effectively, a lot of them have rings to show for it.
Kelsey, I'm glad you said that, because my candidate for the person that could create that mismatch that Paul's talking about is Ben Sinnott. I think that physical profile of his, he's so big and he's pretty quick too. That would be the guy I would look at and say, okay, even though Ertz is pretty darn reliable and he's a really good red zone target, I would really like to see a lot more Ben Sinnott, especially in that end of the field.
Which, I think Ben Sinnott had one catch. He had a catch today earlier. Saw him running over a guy early on in the first half, and that's what he is. He catches, and he moves the ball down the field. As I said earlier in the preseason, we talked about he could be that Gronkowski of the league, or that Travis Kelsey of the league, if when he given the opportunity. One thing I want to take my hats off, because before we get into the stats of the game, I want to take my hats off to Dan Quinn and his coaching staff. Right, in this team, team has really begun to believe and rally around each other, because in years past, let's be honest, a Washington team would have sunk their hips, they would have dropped their head, and they wouldn't have got to this point. Shout out to them. But I am going to say this. I know we can say positive on here, we're going to be negative, but burn their doggone black uniforms, right? They burned
black uniforms.
They're the best looking ones, in my opinion.
Kelsey, go to the history with this team wearing black uniforms. They wore black uniforms.
I get that, but they look good.
I know they look good, but the history with this team wearing black uniforms are not successful. They won today, but the black uniforms may bring bad luck to the Washington Commanders.
Don't wear them against the Bears then, because it's really only the Bears where that might be a jinx. Because I love the black unis. I do.
Definitely. Hey, I want to give you some stats real quick for the Washington Commanders today. Some key stats that I want to look at, and want you guys both to talk about some of the stats that we hear. The Washington Commanders today ended the game with 481 yards of total offense. They had 313 yards passing. Guess what? 313 yards passing would hurt ribs, right? I want to put that in there. They had 168 yards rushing. They had big stat here, 5 penalties for 30 yards. Those penalties were costly. The Washington Commanders also had 32 minutes, 16 seconds of possession for the day. The biggest stat here is glaring. The Washington team was 5 for 15 on third down. In the past 7 games, they have been more effective and more efficient on third down. You guys, any of those stats that really stick out to you that you want to talk about with the Washington Commanders?
To me, it's that third down, right? I mean, we talked about this in Chicago this year. That Washington needed to focus on that, right? You have to be able to extend and convert plays. It was nice. I think we had it nice while Tressway was able to rest a lot for this Washington team when this offense was able to keep moving the ball down the field in previous games. But all in all, it's funny that Washington's actually better at fourth down statistically, which is really interesting when you look at the stats, Glenn. But all in all, if to win in this league, and again, Washington, they escaped, they came away with it, like you said, keeping positive, and this was a hell of a win. But that third down, if I'm looking into the rest of the schedule, you have to be able to convert there. And I think that's going to be when I'm thinking of the Bears. Jayden Daniels' leadership is going to come in to play, right? How can he get this team amped up? How can he get this offense moving? So I think that's what I'm looking at. But all in all, I'm excited about those yards that they were able. Now, I know they weren't able to score all the points that they're used to scoring here in Washington. But again, like you said, Glenn, I think people are forgetting, because he is so dynamic and so elusive, that Jayden Daniels was not fully healthy. We saw him getting tied up, right? The ribs being more protected on that sideline. So all in all, what he was able to do, very, very excited about in Washington. But again, you got to be able to convert those third downs if you want longevity and a winning record at the end of the season.
I think they were 2 for 8 on third in the second half, because I think they were 3 for 7 at halftime.
That second half hurt,
Second half, and some of that has to do with play calling. But I like this question right here. and I'm asking, do you wonder if Daniels' ribs affected Cliff Kingsbury play calling today for Jaden Daniels? We didn't see a lot of zone reads, anything of that nature. Go ahead, Kelsey, your thoughts.
I think it definitely might have, but I feel like Jayden was Jayden, right? I mean, regardless, he was still able to be elusive, get out. I mean, the stiff arm that he gave, hopping over defenders. I mean, he was still the dynamic guy that we saw. So I think while Cliff was trying to play it safe, Jayden had other thoughts in his mind. And I think that's what obviously helped Washington be able to extend plays. But let's be honest, I think Cliff had to be conservative because, again, this is just week 8 of the NFL season. There's a lot more football to play. And Washington fans are going to be a lot more, safer and feeling confident going into games if you have Jaden Daniels behind the center rather than Marcus Mariota, who, again, we saw a little bit of, but you want Jaden Daniels for the long run. So, yes, I think Cliff had to be unique. Yes, I would have liked to see a little bit more, but I think he did the right play calling, again, not knowing how sure Jaden Daniels would be. Again, when he got thrown to the ground that first time, we saw immediately come to the sidelines right after that series, get wrapped up, make sure he's safe and good. And I'm sure Cliff in his mind was in that playbook thinking, okay, what's the best way we can get down the field, but also keep my quarterback safe for the long run.
George, I got this.
By the way, I absolutely agree with everything Kelsey said, and I absolutely agree with. I think the question's right. I think there was no question that his play calling was affected, and it does make me think. Maybe next week might be the week that you give Jayden a week off and you go to Mariota because you're playing, let's face it, a team that's not very good and they only barely beat him the last time. I know that, but you know that Marcus Mariota can perform for you. I think that's something we can sort of file away and go to later. But yeah, I don't think there's any question his play calling was affected. I think there are probably certain route combinations and certain deep shots that probably weren't used in this offense because I think they were worried about Jayden throwing the ball down the field, even though he had a really nice throw to McLaurin down the field and then, of course, did what he did at the end of the game.
Here it is. I want to bring this point up, too, because I want us to play Sunday even quarterback, right? I'm going to give you 2 questions at this time. One, here it is. With Jaden Daniels being banged up, Brian Robinson should have had 28 carries, right? He should have had 28 quick carries, which goes to this question right here. Which question I think most of us were talking about, and my man Mike said is the 4th inches, right? Not going for it could have been the reason we lost because Quinn didn't go for it. With Brian Robinson in the backfield, should have had 28 carries. It's 4th in this much, right? 4th in this much, game on the line, you're winning. And you're on your own 11-yard line. I've had to make this decision before, right? I'm that guy, right? Hate me.
You always go for it, Glenn.
I am that coach, right? I'm that when I coach football. When I was head JV coach, we went for stuff like this because I trust my guys. I trust in my offensive line. I understand the situation. Do you go for it, right? And I want you guys in the chat. Let me know if you're 4th and inches. Brian Robinson, Jaden Daniels in the backfield. Do you go for it?
I want Kelsey to answer first.
Okay. This was a tough one, right? We just talked about Jaden Daniels, obviously wanting to protect him. And you think about the 4th and inches and you think about how tight it is in the trenches, right, when that happens. So I think that might have been on his mind. But I think in a game like this that was so close and you let a team hang around, and you talked about it, Glenn, again, the Commanders have one of the most exciting backfields. I would have loved to see more of the backs get more touches. I think that's why Washington has been able to score so much in the past because they've had such a hard offense to contain. So I think for me, Glenn, I would have, because I think that also shows trust in your team. But I say all that to say, I understand the play call and wanting to play conservative football. Yes, it almost lost it, but in the end, Dan Quinn is smiling and is happy right now in that Washington locker room. It all worked out.
Michael Underwood, that is a great question because quite honestly, I might have let off talking about that if they had lost. Let me shout out one of my favorite Twitter follows at One Lovely Lady C, who called it right out from the start, said they should have gone for it. And I totally agree with her because you think about the time of the game. It is 4:39 to go. Yeah. Yes, if you get stuffed there, and to me, it would have been a QB sneak all day long with Jaden Daniels. If he gets any kind of forward push, he's going to get the first down. You do the brotherly shove or the tush push, whatever you want to call it. But okay, you get stopped there. They're not going to run off 4.5 minutes to get a touchdown. They'll probably, if they're at the worst, say they get the touchdown, get the 2, and they've started from the 12, and there's 4:39 to go. You've got 2.5 minutes left. You're down 3 points. You've got a timeout left. You can do the job. Your offense can put something together. Jaden Daniels, even having the tough day that he's had, could lead you down the field to win. And you're probably going to, and again, 2.5 minutes is probably the absolute minimum you're going to have. You might have 3 or 3.5 minutes left. So for me, they had to go there because momentum is against you, and that's the way to swing it. But even if you get stopped there and they get a touchdown, you still have time. That would have cost them the game. And I would have been ripping Dan Quinn to shreds over that because for me, you've been about being aggressive. You've been about taking the game to everybody. That's why, with the exception of the Bucs game, I mean, that's how you played in Baltimore and you went toe-to-toe with them. That was the first time I was really disappointed with this coaching staff that they didn't, because it felt like it was really against character to be not that aggressive. It worked out in the end, but Michael Underwood, I'd have been starting with that if they'd have lost.
But George, really quickly, Glenn, I think the timeout factor also played into that, though. Remember, Washington was in trouble, right, with how many timeouts they had remaining. So I don't know. I think that also could have played a factor into when, again, you're looking, to your point, George, at that clock and what you have. I think that's kind of why, again, he played a little bit more conservative just because Washington got themselves into that hole. Sorry, Lenny.
I just, with 4:39 left, I'd rather they have the ball at the 12. And if they score there because you're going to have time. As it ended up, they get the touchdown with 25 seconds left, and it looked like you were going to lose the game, but we know what happened.
You talk about that too, and I think from a mindset of Dan Quinn is too, my defense is playing well. I got one of the best punters in the league. Let them have to travel down the field to score 7. They have to score 7 to beat me. And so they hadn't scored 7 for 3.5 quarters. And so let me see it. And Roy, we just asking questions, but guess what, baby? Because I'm going to put you up there because I love it. Hold on for a minute. What it shoulda, coulda, guess what?
That's right, Roy.
Won, right? I don't care what it coulda, shoulda. The Washington Commanders still won. So I got you here. We understand that. But those are questions that fans we got to ask, right? Because we all ask ourselves. We're asking ourselves that question. Here's the biggest thing too. Washington offensive lineman went down today for Washington Commanders, right? Brandon Coleman was out. I believe we missed Brandon Coleman a lot today,
loss.
Right? I believe Brandon Coleman not being active due to being in concussion protocol was a big loss for this Washington Commanders team. Kelsey, let's start with you. Brandon Coleman, how big and how important is Brandon Coleman to this Washington Commander offense?
Let me tell you. So the difference between this season and last season, I think, is the offensive line play, right? Last season, we had a lot of questions. Every show I went on in every city was, can Washington's offensive line protect the quarterback, no matter who was back there? I think this year we had started to build some consistency, Glenn. So I think early on, you could kind of see that being an issue. Now, again, Jayden Daniels is still Jayden Daniels, and thank gosh he's back there. He can still do what he needs to do. But I'm glad that you brought up the injuries, Glenn. I think moving forward, I want to see how serious these are, because I do think that will play a factor. Again, Jayden Daniels not fully healthy, and offensive line that's not fully healthy. And you are going to have teams that, again, because he's a rookie, are going to want to put some pressure on him. And of course, practice tackling, because he's very hard to get down. But all in all, I do think this game, obviously, they were able to evade it some. Obviously, you saw Jayden pressured, but he, again, it was able to be elusive and get out of some of that. But I think moving forward and looking at the teams that these squads have to face, Glenn, I'm really hoping that, again, none of these are too serious, where Washington can have consistent offensive line to protect Jayden Daniels. That's when this team will be at its best. But I'm glad you brought up Coleman. I don't think it was talked about enough, but that was a big loss for Washington.
And again, that's right, Jeremy. We talk about it. Shout out to Trent Scott for stepping in at left tackle, right?
Much better than the other side.
Right. Shout out. Even Wiley went down today, but came back in. But shout out to Trent Scott for stepping in and having a great thing. Jeremy, I'm going to get you sparked up in a minute, but we can get to that later. George, your thoughts?
I mean, let's cross our fingers and toes that Brandon Coleman can play next week, because we're going to be in a lot of trouble. I mean, Trent Scott, I felt bad for him because on the one false start, the ref literally caused him to false start, and I was furious at that point. I wasn't mad at Trent Scott. I was mad at the ref. But he had a tough time out there. I mean, that's a tough situation to be in, to be up against Montez Sweat there. And, maybe with a full week of practice with the ones or the twos, he can do better, because – by the sound of it, it sounds like Lucas might not be available next week. Maybe that's me firing early, but that's what it sounds like with his injury. Sounded like with the way he went down. But we better have Coleman next week. So that, because it's going to be tough against that Giants defensive line. They played real well the first game against Washington.
Here it is. Washington had a great game. I want to get Jeremy started. How much you would have put this on St. Juice at the end of the game? Because let's be honest, there were several times during that last couple of drives, St. Juice was getting cooked. That was going to come down to St. Juice. the secondary played well, so I don't want to blame it all on the secondary. They played well. The defense played well, but there has to be something said. St. Juice just officially grabbed this guy, right? And we knew he's good for one a game. And we talking about trade deadlines. People talk about trading for Higgins. Washington Commanders in the offense don't need trade for anybody on the offense. They need a trade for a corner. Kelsey, your thoughts? If you're trading on St. Juice,
Ben, I hated this for him because, like you said, it could have been the game right there. Essentially, Washington able to come back in the end, but this was again an issue he had in that Baltimore game. Remember as well, if folks remember that against the Ravens, and so you could go back to that. I think he's still learning. Again, he's still young. I think give him still a little bit of a grace period. I think to your point, Glenn, the secondary in Washington is the one that kind of gives me a little bit of worry at night before game days. So all in all, to say, yes, you could look at it. Yes, I think he's going to get obviously his fair share of complaints for that play. It was so obvious too. Like, I'm like, come on, St. Jude. Like, if you're going to do that, at least try to be a little bit like, at least try to hide it a little bit. But all in all, that's how you know. I mean, I felt like he knew he was already beaten and he didn't know what else to do. But all in all, Glenn, I am looking at the secondary, as you said, if I'm looking at anything that needs to change for Washington, because again, if you want this team to go far and you look at some of the high-powered, let's talk about it. This league is an offensive league right now, right? High-powered offensive weapons. They're getting paid as such, right? We see all these contracts going through. So I think he is going to continue to get tested. Am I ready to be fully done with him? No, but I think, again, that's going to be some things that he has to work on because, again, costly penalty, very costly penalty that really, if you think about it, brought Chicago back into this one.
Yeah,
he just panics. He goes right to 10. It's like he goes right to 10 from 1 to, I have to panic. I have to grab this guy. And I think the shame of it there on that fourth down is Caleb was under pressure. It was probably going to be a clear overthrow, and the game's going to be over. You're going to win more than likely because the Bears did have 3 timeouts. But golly, Moses, he's either got to trust his technique, or they got to get it in his mind that you just can't immediately panic and go to, I got to grab this guy. That's the frustration with Ben St. Juste, is that there's no medium. It's either 1 or 10. And 10 is panic, and he always goes to 10.
And I'm not saying he had a terrible game, but there's moments, right? And
he had a big stop on 4th down. He had a huge stop on 4th down. Him and Louver.
I'm not ready to fully be done with him.
Yeah, I'm not fully done with him, but there's moments, right? And as journalists and people in the game who watch this game, there's things that we have to talk about, right? There's some things that we have to discuss, and that was one that we've been on St. Juice about for a minute, right? We talk about the same thing. I'm going to get into Noah Brown and all the drops today from the Washington Commanders receivers, right? Yeah. Let's be honest. There was a lot of drops today that hit people in the chest. Noah Brown dropped some balls today, right? De'Ami Brown dropped one today, right? Austin Eckler dropped one today that should have been a first down to extend plays, right? Yeah. And some of those wasn't on Jayden Daniels. Some of those on receivers. The Washington Commanders had a bad football, and offensively they had a bad game today, but still came out with the W. They still came out with the win, still moved the ball down the field. As we mentioned, they had almost 400 yards of offense, right? And almost 400 yards of offense. You take the wins because guess what? You take the win, you enjoy the day, but when you get in the film room tomorrow, there can be some breakdowns. There can be some things discussed. There can be some things talked about. You enjoyed tonight. You paint the city of DC burgundy and gold. But moving forward, if we want to continue, if this team wants to continue to move forward in the NFC conference, right? We're just not talking about the division right now, right? We're talking about the conference. This team is in conference play. They're in a play now for seeding of where they want to be at in the conference. They have some execution. And again, did it again. I want to say it one more time. You did it with a hurt Jayden Daniels, who still put up 313 yards on here. So, Kelsey, your thoughts on this offensive movement or the miscues from the offense today? It was not the Washington Commanders team that we have seen in the past who put up 30 points majority of the season.
Right. You're right. It was uncharacteristic, right? Washington football a bit. And like you said, that Noah Brown drop immediately comes to mind. And, I was watching the Baltimore game earlier where Rashad Bateman had a big drop, but at least he was able to blame the sun. Noah Brown was not Glenn in that one. It was shady on that side of the football field. So there was nothing but ball for him to catch. And of course, you have to think about, was the Bears defense getting into them? Was a psyche thing, but all in all to say, I do think when you look at this game, like you said, I mean, if the Commanders want to move forward, and again, I think they have the weapons. This is something that in the past we've talked about, the quarterbacks also haven't had any weapons. Jaden Daniels has them. And Noah Brown, very capable. I mean, the rest of the season, he's somebody I'm like, give him the ball more. He is a playmaker that I would love to see. Like you said, Eckler, uncharacteristic. I think Austin Eckler has been so amazing for this football team and such a positive addition. So, I mean, you're going to have these days, Glenn, as you know, as a coach. Sometimes it's just not your day, but again, they're still able to come up with the win. But all in all, I think Washington, again, you're going to have to help Jayden out as much as you can, especially why he's not 100%, because he's going to want to get that ball out. And so if I'm Cliff Kingsbury wanting to, create those short chuck plays, but I need guys to catch them. I need Jayden to have help. I don't need him to always have to scramble and run and be magnificent. And that's going to be kind of when those guys have to step up. So it's not just him. They have a lot of names, right, that can be called up. Again, the ball can be spread in Washington. We've seen that. That's why they are the top scoring offense, right now. Well, maybe not after this game when the math is done, but all in all, math and calculations have to be done. But all in all, like you said, Glenn, I don't think it's just on Jayden. Again, I am still excited about what this team has to do. But again, if I'm looking at film, there's a lot of guys that I just need to make sure that when their number is called, they're going to be the one that can make sure that this team continues to offensively progress and move down the football field. Now, again, a positive, Glenn, like you said, was the time on the clock, right? And how Washington was able to dominate that better than Chicago. I mean, Caleb Williams, I felt really bad for him a lot of times. I mean, you could see just the duress and frustration that he was under. And again, still able to make plays on that side of the football. But all in all, I think on the other side of the football, Jaden Daniels and everything that he was facing, not as distraught as Caleb Williams was, all in all, just because, again, Washington's offense playing better football. We've seen them play better, but playing better football today than the Chicago Bears were able to play.
Can I make one comment about Caleb Williams? Not that there's any Bears fans listening, but if they are, they ought to walk away from this game 100% convinced of Caleb Williams, because that is the ultimate test of a quarterback. You've had a terrible game. You have struggled. You've missed passes. You've had everything go wrong. And yet when they absolutely had to have it, he led them down the field for what should have been a game-winning touchdown drive. Yeah. There should be no slander of Caleb Williams. I don't care how bad he played in the first three quarters. I don't want to hear any slander of Caleb Williams. I don't want to hear anybody questioning Caleb Williams. You got to have it up here. You got to be mentally tough to do what Caleb Williams did in the fourth quarter to lead their team back to what should have been a victory. So I just wanted to say that about him, because he is the son of the DMV, and he showed you a lot more today than a lot of other quarterbacks have, because there's a lot of quarterbacks that play that badly and can't come up with it at the end of the game. The true greats can, and that's what Caleb can be.
Yeah, he proved he was tough, because, again, he was being pressured, and he was still able, as George said, should have, could have, might have had that win and that comeback from behind victory. Remember, there was a time where the Commanders weren't scoring and the Bears were the only ones moving that football. So all in all, I'm like you. I think Caleb Williams, I know Chicago is a tough sports city, but all in all, I think he did what he could with what he had and played a solid football game here in his return to the DMV area.
They played a great game. I'm playing a great game. And when, and go back to Noah Brown, right? For him to be able to be mentally tough and to overcome adversity and to catch a touchdown, right? To be in the right place at the right time. I had a high school football coach say this, and I no offense to anyone who's listening. He said there's two things that you never knock up in the world, right? You never knock up females, you never knock up footballs. And, and he said, so, again, that was what he said. So I understand. So, and what happened today? The Chicago Bears knocked up a football, and they lost. And Noah Brown was in the right place at the right time. Great to have the Jaden Daniels to be on back. Go back to the positive note, because we're not trying to be negative. Jaden Daniels had enough ability to run. The Bears only blitzed 3, right? And he was able to extend the play and get guys open, and he threw it up. And again, Noah Brown was sitting there, and we'll take that with the game winner. Noah Brown with the game winner. My hats off to him. Great for Noah Brown. Great for the Washington Commanders team. As many of you said in the chat, this doesn't happen in Washington.
No, it doesn't.
Nice things don't happen to us in the DMV.
Right.
No.
It doesn't happen in Washington, but this happened in Washington, and Washington fans should be wearing burgundy gold tomorrow. 10/27/24 should be Jaden Daniels Day. Call it whatever you want to call it, because again, this team is 6-2, and they still in control of the division. Going to play the New York Football Giants next week. They're in conference play. This was a great team win. And, it was a great win for this organization, right? There's some team games that you can look back to and say, you know what? It's a culture shift, right? Yeah. This is a culture shift. This is a change. I think this was one of those games where you look back and say, you know what? this changed the organization. Because I saw something that was key. And Kelsey, I want you to talk about this. If you saw the excitement from Dan Quinn,
Yes.
you saw the excitement
Yes.
you saw the excitement from those. When you see that excitement from a coach, your players they feel that. They understand the energy. It was a kid again. Get to Kelsey on this great win for the Washington Commanders and the energy you saw from the coaching staff.
Glenn, I love it here. I love it here in Washington. This time last season, if you listen to the singer Kalani, she has a line and it says, "You don't hit my line no more." And that's how I felt in Washington, because nobody wanted to talk with me about the Commanders team unless it was bad things, right, happening, and how much of a debacle, right, and things were in Washington, where all of a sudden now it's a culture shift. As you said, it's a positivity shift. My phone is blowing up right now with positives. Kelsey, can you talk about what this team did here, what they did there? And I'm excited to talk about it. And like you said, I was so glad. Shout out to the cameraman that panned right to Dan Quinn after that, and to see him jump with joy and happiness, and the players grab him. I believe it was Frankie Luvu. That was awesome.
Frankie Luvu almost tackled him.
Yeah, I mean that needs to be a meme, a GIF. Like, give it to me. Like, and this is something that we weren't used to in Washington. Again, we've gotten used to somber faces and being the laughing stock, honestly, of the National Football League, right? Like, and I think especially because we know, sorry to Wizards fans, it's going to be a long, rough season for basketball. It's nice to have some type of ball here in DC that's balling right now, and that is Washington. So all in all, I think Dan Quinn has been praised for naming the captains each week and making sure they get recognition. I absolutely do love that. I think it does mean something to the guys, right, when your number is called and being a leader. But he's absolutely changed, I think, the culture of this team. I think there's a different aura around it. You can see it as well with the butts that are in FedEx Field this year. Like, people want to be at Washington games. I'm old enough to remember when fans would just be giving away tickets, right? They're not doing that anymore. They want something back for that. And, also, again, it's more burgundy and gold again, at FedEx Field, right? It's fans that are proud of this team. So all in all, I think what Dan Quinn has done, and I'm so happy that he got this opportunity. I know there were some questions when it first started, would he be able to help this team offensively? Have y'all seen the points that Washington has been putting up this season? I'm not saying it's all Dan Quinn, right? It's a team effort. But again, this is something that we did not know what would happen in Washington. We were talking about this team being at the bottom, folks, of the NFC East, right? With the Giants team that we didn't know about, right? And Daniel Jones. And all in all, this team has, I think, surpassed expectations already early into the season. And again, this is going to be one of the most fun teams to talk about. I hope national television networks give them their shine and their fair due tomorrow, because something special and something promising is happening here in DC. And I think, especially before this election, we're going to need all the Commander football wins that we can take, because I don't know how emotions are going to be after November 4th.
Something crazy is going to have to happen in this Cowboys 49ers game for Jayden Daniels not to be leading every sports show. I record Good Morning Football on Good Morning Football Overtime on one of the local channels here every day. I have no doubt that when I come home from work for lunch to watch it, that's what they're going to be starting with.
Jayden Daniels,
This Hail Mary is going to get replayed. And it's going to sound blasphemous, because it's like, how can you compare it to those two playoff moments? But given how important football is to this town and this region, I put it right up there with Evgeny Kuznetsov in overtime against the Penguins and Howie Kendrick either against the Dodgers or the Astros. It's that unbelievable, because those are the only other times I've screamed like my dear old grandmother when something good has happened to a team in this area. And that's how crazy we are about football, that a Hail Mary in week 6 could be as big as any of those things, but I think it is.
It's a football town again. It's a football town again. And I feel like we've been waiting for that, right? We've known football is king here, but the football play hadn't measured up to that. So again, I think it's exciting. I think right now, though, George, it's probably going to be the J&J show tomorrow on national shows. It's going to be Jameis Winston, right? And that, him getting the start, him being able to beat potential Super Bowl contenders in the Baltimore Ravens, and then Jayden Daniels in that Hail Mary. So I absolutely love to see it. I think these are two guys, again, with magnificent storylines, but so excited that Jayden Daniels gets this start. I'm curious from you guys, if Marcus Mariota had started, do you think we'd be having the same conversation right now?
That's a good question, Kelsey. I think if Marcus Mariota was started, I think we still have the W. I really believe I said it on Wednesday night. Yeah. I said it on our podcast that we would still get the win. They might have scored touchdowns. I'm not saying it's Jayden Daniels' fault that they didn't get in, because a lot of the things were because of the offensive line, right, not holding the ball. And truth be told, some of these screens or linemen downfield is Jaden Daniels' fault for not releasing the ball much quicker. The linemen don't know.
Yes.
We don't want to put it on Jaden Daniels because he's our hero right now. But some of that lineman downfield stuff is on him because he didn't release the ball as quick as he should have on there, and that could be to the ribs because screens are timing plays, right? They have to be timing. The linemen understand, and also, so again, we don't want to talk about that because again, I don't want to be negative, right? But I want to be positive. But it really is on Jaden Daniels because they should have been released much quicker on screens because sometimes, especially if they were RPOs, right? The linemen don't know. The linemen know that it's run. The linemen understand that it's a run, and then therefore RPO comes and he has to throw it to a screen, and so that's one of the things his goes there, right? So I really do enjoy the fact that the Washington Commanders won. Great win for the organization. Y'all talk about the J&J tomorrow, but it is a great win for the organization. I want to look at the guys that stepped up today, right? Zacchaeus, right? The long run he had. De'Ami Brown, right? Had a big catch and run that he had. So we've seen playmakers, and it's not just the big names, right? Just not the big names, but it's also some of the role players, as we want to call it. Here it is, Johnny Newton. We talked about losing Jonathan Allen, right? I want to talk about Newton today because Newton played his butt off today, right? The young guy played, and Johnny Newton had a great game. Kelsey, your thoughts on Johnny Newton and his play in the defensive line play without Jonathan Allen?
Yeah, honestly, for Johnny Newton, game changer. That's simple. That's easy for him. I mean, the man balled out. I mean, he should be all over our Twitter timelines or whatever social media platform you're on because he stepped up and he showed out when his number, was called. And I think all in all, you talk about without Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, very excited for him as well today. Had his number in name called. So I think all in all, again, when you look at this Washington team, the defensive guys that needed to step up, at least in the front, were able to do their job. Again, I know we talked about the secondary some, and I know there's some holes that they can fix, but all in all, I'm very excited about the play of some of these young guys and what they were able to do. Again, keeping it positive, the future is very bright in Washington if this team can stay healthy. I'm excited about it. And you talk about De'Ami Brown, and he's somebody I absolutely think can continue to grow. Again, excited for. I think his probability, his future, Glenn, is really, really high. I do want more from him, though. I'll be honest from you because I know there is more from him. And I like to see him used in more creative ways. But all in all, again, I think his upward trajectory is going in the right direction. But I know he can also be a playmaker and a game changer. I want to use those words, for him because there was a guy that was in Washington that I really did like, and that was Jahan Dotson. And of course, he's no longer there. But he was somebody I used to always talk about is a stud, and I think he had a very high ceiling. So all in all, again, I want De'Ami Brown to be able to step up more. I want it to be where both Browns are stepping up. And you don't even know which one it is because they're both game changers and they're both playmakers. But I think both of them, again, all in all, pleased, but there's a lot more that we can get from them.
Johnny Newton looked like the guy who was getting paid over $20 million a year to play football today. Johnny Newton was dominating interior, getting pressure, getting in Caleb Williams' face, forcing him out of the pocket, forcing him to get uncomfortable. He comes up with that fumble recovery when the Bears called that ludicrous play on the goal line. Who's getting it? It's Johnny Newton. This is the beginning for Johnny Newton. We're going to look back when hopefully he's getting a big contract extension in 3 or 4 years' time. We're going to say this is the moment when Johnny Newton started to establish himself as one of the best defensive tackles in football. I really believe that. I'm
praise.
Glenn will tell you I'm a big fan of Johnny Newton. I was surprised as heck when they took him, but I've watched enough Big Ten football. Johnny Newton was a holy terror at Illinois. Nobody, and I mean nobody, liked lining up across against him in college football. And this is the day I've been waiting for with Johnny Newton all season. And he looked like a $20+ million a year player.
He looked well today. I think the D-line for the last 2 games have played well. Let's be honest again. I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. This defense still held the Chicago Bears to 15 points, right? In 2 weeks, this defense has only given up 22 total points in defense. So this defense is coming along. This defense as well. It's some games that the defense has to win games. Let's be honest. This defense won this game today. right? The defense kept the Washington Commanders in position to win the game at the end. This defense with a big fumble at the goal 1 yard line, right? The defense here with the sacks that they had today, with stopping Caleb Williams, who confused Caleb Williams again. The Washington Commanders, who had a number 4 ranked offense, didn't put up 30 points today, but they still got the win. It is a great win. It's a great team win. It's positivity in the Washington and DC land. It's positivity on all burgundy and gold. The Washington Commanders got the win, and they didn't play their best football game. The defense played very well, and they kept the offense in it, right? They still put up a lot of yards. They just couldn't get into the end zone. This is what we saw week 2 against the New York Giants, where they had 7 field goals, right? They got 20 points. Get into the offense, right? Couldn't get into the end zone. But again, they came back, they rewrote the ship, and the Washington Commanders was able to maneuver. And a win's a win, right? At the end of the day, they won, right? At the end of the day, the Washington Commanders are 6-2. All right. Yeah. They beat the Chicago Bears. All right. It's excitement in DC right now. Everywhere you go is going to be excitement because the Washington Commanders, all right, won the football game.
Yeah.
It was great. And again, Jeremy, you said something. Bears were top 10 against the pass alone also, right? Top 10 against the pass. But the Washington Commanders and Jayden Daniels still put up 313 yards of passing today. You had Noah Brown, who had 73 yards. I know a lot of that came on the last catch of the game. You had Terry McLaurin over 100 today, 125 yards. You had Noah Brown. You had Zach Ertz today, 7 catches for 77 yards. So the Washington Commanders, even though the Bears were in top 10, they still got ripped by Jaden Daniels that wasn't 100%. I want to bring on, my man. We got guests in the house, right? We got guests, and my man was chopping at the bit, man. He's a friend of the program, family member of the program. He's been on with us each and every week. I'm gonna bring in my man from my man DH. DH, what's going on?
DH,
I know you want to comment. I know the excitement. DH, you're about 56 minutes late, but guess what? I'm gonna give you the hot tag. I'm gonna let you come in. The hot tag, because we're wrestling brothers, right? Here's the hot tag. You come in and tell us your thoughts of the Washington Commanders today, and has your heartbeat and your heart rate gone down?
Listen, the blood pressure is finally back to normal. I know I would be sore tomorrow because I took a lap around my cul-de-sac, screaming at the top of my lungs. My throat is already sore. I literally had 10 FaceTimes just back to back. People just calling me. Can you believe it? Man, this team. Okay, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to try not to get emotional because, George, I saw you earlier, and I felt like you was feeling it. But this team has provided a level of excitement that in my 39 years of life that I don't physically remember having, right? Today was a magical day. The play was ridiculous. I was screaming down here in the basement. My wife was giving my daughter a bath. She was screaming upstairs in the bathroom. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like, and then it just goes back to one thing, man. And I never forget this. And y'all know I do the prime impression, but he always said, "You gotta believe, baby. You got to believe." And the thing about it is, man, I believed, and the fact that it happened like that, oh my goodness, I really couldn't believe it. But to see the ball just find his hands and his fingertips, and he locked it in. I mean, kudos to them, not quitting, not giving up, and giving themselves an opportunity at the end of the game, because that's all you ask for, right? It's just an opportunity to try to win the game. And, rib injury, what injury? He heaved that ball 70 yards to the front of the end zone and got it there, and we found a way to do it. And this goes back to like the Giants game, man. Regardless of who you play or how it gets done, the only thing that counts is the dub. So they were able to do it. I'm so excited. And as a fan, I couldn't believe it. So excited.
Shout out, by the way, the NFL flexing this to 425 so that people like me in apartments didn't get noise complaints against us for hollering and screaming and jumping up and down and acting crazy at, say, 11:30 at night. Because imagine this happened at 11:30 at night. I might be getting thrown out of my apartment for it.
Unbelievable, man. And it just goes to show, man, like this team has pretty much shown through 8 weeks that they can overcome pretty much anything. They can play with the best. They can win in spite of. They always have an opportunity, even when we're lacking in one area, another area picks it up. Like even when there was some questionable calls, even when we had to fight the refs today. I mean, we played good. We played good enough football, and the defense stepped up and played very good football today, like very good football. And the offense just found a way to get it done at the end of the game. So I mean, I'm just kudos to this coaching staff, man. This is a totally new era. We have guys in the building that know what they're talking about, guys and gals in the building that know what they're talking about, know how to coach. And this fight that they had at the end of the game, it goes to show exactly what Dan Quinn has been preaching, is that we don't give up. We're going to fight. We're going to always bring our dogs. And it's not over until it's over. And if this is a testament to anybody, it's never over until it's over. You fight to the end. And then you worry about next week. But I'm going to enjoy this as a fan today. I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah,
I think we all as fans are going to enjoy this win, right? We're going to talk about this. People, this is going to be water cooler talk tomorrow. This is going to be
through Wednesday. This is going to take us through midweek, man.
Yes.
You know, and how ironic, right? How ironic is that they talked about the Caleb Williams Hail Mary all game long.
Yes.
They talked about the Caleb Williams. They showed the
That's
Caleb
right.
Williams Hail Mary during the game, and how ironic he comes back.
That is a great point.
By a Hail Mary play in his hometown. I was like, the irony of this. Like Vince McMahon and Vince Russo back in their heyday couldn't script it.
You couldn't write it any better, man. The Attitude Era has nothing on this. You could not have written this any better.
Sports is still the best reality TV, and it will ever be thus.
Completely. I mean, this is an ending that everyone now, if they missed it, what are they doing? They're going to go catch back up on it, because this is something you're going to remember where you were when. What is today? October 27th. And like DH said, I mean, this is something I think the Commanders today showed they could overcome adversity. And then honestly, they showed they had some dog in them, right? And some fight in them.
Yes.
And I feel like now the question I always love to ask players is the identity of this football team. I feel like I know the identity of this Washington football team now until week 8 of the season. And that helps me. When you know who you are, you can know where you can go. I think that's what's most exciting about this Washington team. And again, I think that belief for the first time in years, like DHH is 39, I'm 32. So their last win was before I was born, their last Super Bowl win. I feel like now a whole generation of millennials, of Gen Zers, I think they're Gen Zers, like my sister, are the young folks, also can buy into why Washington celebrates guys like Darryl Green and the heydays of Washington. And now maybe that those heydays can once again, not saying this season, but sooner than later become a realistic expectation again for Washington fans.
Here's a question for you guys from Paul, and the Washington team had to deal with this for the last couple of weeks, right? And I want you guys' thoughts on this. And DH, we'll start with you, then we go to Kelsey and then George. You guys start your takes on this. The substitution rule, is it fair?
DH, let me just say, before DH starts, can I just say this? DH flagged this up. I think it was during a midweek show weeks ago. And when I saw them lollygagging out there, I thought I was going to hit the roof of my apartment, honestly. And DH, you were right about this. So I apologize for doing that. Let me yield back to the gentleman who's been talking about this for weeks.
Hey, it's okay, George, man. We're on the same page, but I feel like the competition committee, they really have to look at this, because it is an unfair advantage for a situation just like that when you can have guys lollygag and substitute on the field. And then also the refs are literally standing in front of the ball to 2 seconds. So like, okay, granted, you sub, all right. So how do you expect us to run a play if you're running it all the way down to 2 seconds? That was the issue with us burning timeouts. And this is not just in our game. This happens in every game, every week across the league. I want to read up and study what the exact rule is, if they do have a timing mechanism in it, like when you can do it. Or is it just because one team subbed, the other team has the opportunity? But it has to be done with some type of pace. It has to be done with some type of intention. It can't be done just, lollygagging and causing penalties, because like it's just an unfair advantage that happens. I mean, I would be in favor of them. Okay, I mean, I know this wouldn't happen, but stopping the clock. Okay, we subbing, you stop the clock until you get set, then run it. I mean, they're not going to do that, but I think they have to fix the substitution rule, because it is an unfair advantage. And then you get in a situation like this where under 2 minutes, even under 4 minutes, we had one timeout. So then that changes how you coach the game, because some were saying, well, when should we call that timeout? Should we even save it to get back on offense? Should we have stopped the clock sooner while we were on defense? So I just feel like the NFL has to look at this. I mean, they look at everything else, and every other rule is a point of emphasis. But this substitution rule, I really think they have to look at it and find some type of common ground to make it a little more fair, and kind of even it up, and just not put teams in this situation like it did for us on today.
I think, DH, you hit a lot of nails on the head. I had my physical this week, so if my doctor is watching, I'm keeping my blood pressure down. So I would say my reaction to this, my face would be that of the face of the Dwayne Wade statue unveiling. That's my face to the statue. So if you haven't seen the Dwayne Wade face on the statue unveiling, that's my face to it, and I'll leave it there.
I'm going to take you all back in time, because the only other person on this panel who might be old enough to remember this is Glenn. Because this was happening. I'm pretty sure it was happening before you were born, Kelsey. I think you would have been a baby when this was happening. DH might have even been before you were born. I remember when Houston ran the run and shoot, and they were red hot. They had Jerry Glanville as the coach, and there was a game where the Cincinnati Bengals were playing down in Houston with Sam Weish, and what they would do to slow the tempo down is have people go down faking injuries. And they were doing it the whole game. And there was nearly a fight between Weish and Glanville after the game. And that's where the rule came from about if you got an injured player, you got to use a timeout. It goes all the way back to that. And these referees, DH is so right about this that it's just I can't even improve upon anything what he said except to say it's one thing when you let the other team sub and all this. But when you got a referee standing in front of the quarterback where he can't take the snap with 2 seconds left on the clock, and the referee essentially calls Trent Scott to get a false start, something is wrong here. And the referees have got to look at this, and they got to, and Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury need to bring it up during the week during the press conference and say to the NFL, we've got to get some clarification on this, because they slow walked their subs and got us a false start as a result. That can't happen anymore, because we should not be penalized if we get our subs done quick and we want to run tempo, but we have to slow down and wait for them. That's penalizing us for having our stuff together. It's ridiculous.
Glenn, just to piggyback on that, I'm sorry, George, just piggyback on that too, man. Like, that's the thing. You see that, there's a stat the other week. We run the most no huddle. We in our offense is based on tempo. I'm pretty sure we're in the top 10 of number of plays every week. So we're a tempo-based offense. So even if, the 40-second play clock, our subs are done by 30. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're done. We're ready to rock and roll. And just because you found out late and now you want to run and sub guys on the field, burn up extra time, I mean, man, there has to be some type of give and take. Like, I understand it, right? You want to give the defense an opportunity to sub, right? But, I mean, if we're subbing early in the play clock, like, no, get out of here. Get out of the way. We're ready to go. Like, and even if we sub one guy, they don't give you the chance to sub, go from a base 43 to then go into a dime package where you subbing, multiple guys. No, bro, we're ready to go. So I really feel like the NFL got to take a look at this and then officiate, man. I don't know if y'all want to look at my Twitter feed, but I'm really, bro, I chewed into them like a child, bro. I really, I mean, they just, you can't have the level of missed calls that they have on a weekly basis. Our touchdown gets called back with the kids. No, they don't even look at, bro. It was three plays on the Swift touchdown that could have got called back. Keenan Allen with a terrible block in the back, 72, literally wearing Quan Martin. He was wearing Quan Martin like a backpack, like on his back to make that block coming through. And it's ridiculous. And you want to go illegal man downfield, like all that stuff is happening. And it's like the refs go to sleep when it's their turn to make
the horse collar. They missed the horse collar.
I'm like, come on, bro. Like, if you're gonna call it, just call it fair. Just like in the NBA, if you want to swallow your whistle to the end of the game, okay, fine. But you gotta call them on both sides. You can't just skew one way. You know what I mean? Like, call it on both sides. So me and the rest, man, we gotta talk, man. Me and the rest will have a conversation.
Yo, it is a great win for the Washington Commanders, but this rule did come to play because something has affected the Washington Commanders for the last several weeks, right? It's a great win Something we can probably discuss about on Thursday night, George. All right. And we try to get somebody on to talk about it, maybe explain with it. But it's a win. And all in all, the rule to me slows the team down. It should be a equal rule, both sides, and they're able to flip, get people in and out and quick enough. And the defense able to substitute because, again, as a defensive guy, I can play the game and get my guy in slowly to slow this thing up because the referee is still standing there. So it has to be something work both ways. But at the end of the day, the Washington Commanders won 18
That's what we
to
care
15.
about.
It is a win. It is a big W for everybody, man. We thank everybody for rocking with us for this last hour and 9 minutes. I want you guys to go celebrate because I'm going to celebrate, right? I'm going to celebrate with the Washington Commanders. It is a big win. I'll probably watch every news clip tomorrow about talking about the Washington Commanders because it's going to be a big news. It's going to be a big story, right? It is going to be a big story, Washington Commanders, because it does not happen to the Washington Commanders. This goes up. I mean, as the short time that he's been here, the 8 games that he's played, this really goes up in the Washington lore, right? Yeah. This goes up in the Washington lore. It's within the top 10 right now already, right? Yeah. And I dare not say 5, depends on who you talk to about the Washington Commanders. All right, the Washington Commanders got a big win today, right? 6-2. Nobody would have thought. I don't care who you are.
Nobody.
Nobody.
That this team would be 6-2 after 8 games, right? Nobody would have thought this team, but the team 6-2. The defense is playing better. Offense had an off day, but still won the game. It is a great day to be a Washington Commander fan. Kelsey, before we get out of here, let everybody know where they can find you on social media and what you got going on, big things that you have going on.
Yeah, well, I'm on social media, the real K Nelson again. So excited for this Commanders win. We'll be talking it all week long. Like I'm all week long leading into the next game. It feels good here in Washington. My website is KelseyNicoleNelson.com. And thank you so much, fellas, for having me join you. And I just want to keep laughing at the folks that kept telling me before the season that this team needed to draft Drake May, because I told everybody, Jayden, was the guys. I know folks that Kelson Nicole Nelson knows her stuff.
Don't forget, she's also part of the A10. We're as a VCU guy, we're very happy to have Kelsey Nicole Nelson as part of the A10.
Definitely. She's also part of Fox Sports 1340 AM 96.9 FM. Joe, DH, man, tell everybody where they can catch you and what y'all got coming up this week. Breaking the man.
As of late, man, you catch me on all these shows here all the time, but you can always find me on X at DH on the mic, and of course, youtube.com/breakingcommandpod. This week, it's going to be a lot to talk about. We're definitely going to get it in. Brand new episode dropping this Wednesday. And just follow along, man. There's so much to do. The playoffs run is happening. We're getting there, and it's going to be fun as we talk about it. Of course, as always, I appreciate y'all having me. Even if it was an hour after the show started, I'm just glad I could be here, man. I appreciate the love, guys.
No problem. Hey, Wole's out, man. Maybe we need Wole to be out every week in Washington.
Hey,
like
I'm
just joking, man. I'm just happy to be able to drive the car, right? He's not here. I didn't be able to drive the car while he's having business. I wasn't here last week. Hey, this is what we do here on All Burgundy Go and everything. Make sure you check us out this Thursday night live, and we go to our podcast, our weekly podcast. Make sure you hit us up on IG at ABG_everything, Twitter ABG_everything, Facebook ABG_everything. Check us out. But before we leave, I want to leave you with this one more time.
Oh yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What need the Machiavelli under it?
Right.
or the Titanic music.
Yeah.
Ave Maria.
Oh.